Introduction. The pages of history are full of innumerable wars fought in ancient India and the world. Yet the most destructive war which will always be remembered in the modern world is the First and the Second World War. The League of Nations was formed with the purpose of establishing permanent peace in the world. But due to certain limitations, it failed, and in 1939, World War II broke out. The disturbed state of mind and the horrors of World War II persuaded human beings to once again make efforts for peace and protection of independence. This resulted in the establishment of the United Nations, 24th October 1945. The United Nations Charter starts with the preamble, and it explains the goals of United Nations. Given below are the goals. 1. There is a determination to save the future generation from the pangs of all destructive war. Here, emphasis has been laid on responsibilities born out of international laws and mutual understanding. 2. Emphasis has been laid on developing tolerance mutually so that the whole world develops socially. 3. Economic, social and cultural problems should be solved with the intervention of United Nations, and human rights as well as basic freedom should be disseminated irrespective of caste, language, gender or religion. 4. Lastly, appeal to all the nations for cooperation to achieve these objectives. Thus, United Nations Charter concludes that dismissal of war and constant urge for peace is the main objective of United Nations. Cold War, 1945 to 1962. Reasons and consequences. Though the World War II got over, it resulted into creation of America and Russia as superpowers while taking the place of England and France. In war, England, France, Russia and America were together. But Russian administration policies created differences, and thus America and England separated. A strong competition between the two superpowers, that is America and Russia, to establish supremacy over the world emerged after Second World War. The power was centralized between two poles, that is America and Russia. Therefore, this time period is considered as bipolar world order. Owing to extremely tense relations between two power blocks, this phase is known as the Cold War phase. At various incidents, both the superpowers almost came into conflict with one another. There was a basic change in relations among powerful nations of the world after the World War. America and the Soviet Union, who had once allied and fought against the Nazi Germany, and the fascist Italy, emerged as leaders of two rival power blocks and military powers. Thus, the Cold War started between them. Though Britain and France also had emerged victorious, yet they lost the status of great powers due to the terrible ruination caused by the ravages of war and ending of imperialism. Germany, Italy and Japan not only lost the war, but also were ruined economically, politically and militarily. After the war, the Soviet Union, Russia, captured the eastern areas of Germany and other eastern countries like Austria, Albania, Hungary, Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, and the Baltic states. Later on, they gave away reins of power to respective communist parties of those countries. They did this to continue their superiority on these countries. During 1949, by conducting a nuclear test, the Soviet Union directly challenged the monopolistic nuclear powers of America. Meanwhile, democratic system was gradually established in the Western European countries that were liberated by British and American forces. The world distributed among army group. One of the most important aspects of the conflict of ideology was mutual distrust and sense of doubt on the intention of the rival group. Owing to fear born out of mutual distrust and doubts, both the powers established their own military bases. Led and inspired by America, Western democratic countries on the North Atlantic Ocean established a military organization, NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, in April 1949. Thereafter, to protect southeastern countries from the onslaught on the Soviet Union communism, America and England established one more military organization in 1945, SEATO, Southeastern Asiatic Treaty Organization. One more military organization, CENTO, Central Asia Treaty Organization, was established in Middle Eastern countries under the leadership and inspiration of England. Here, various Arab countries joined CENTO. Later on, America took over its leadership. Armament, disarmament, nuclear weapon creation, and its application. The Cold War, which was meant for dominance over the world, gave rise to fierce competition among superpowers, and for the sake of dominance, armament race was given high priority. America had to use atom bomb for the first time on two cities of Japan, namely Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1945. This way, America proved its supremacy. Within next 4 years, the Soviet Union too proved its capacity of making atom bomb by conducting a nuclear test. This created a power balance between the superpowers. America declared blockade of the communist Cuba, which was on southeast. To defend Cuba against possible attacks of America, the Soviet Union sent ships loaded with nuclear missiles in the Caribbean Sea. Both the superpowers threatened each other to use nuclear weapons. The world was almost on the verge of nuclear war. Finally, leaders of America and the Soviet Union had a talk on the hotline for the first time. The Soviet Union decided to withdraw its ships, and America decided to curb nuclear missiles aimed towards Cuba. The whole episode is known as Cuban Crisis. This episode is a very important episode in world politics. It begins communication between two superpowers. This incident is important towards the process of disarmament of nuclear weapons. The entire Cuban crisis is considered as the beginning of the end of the Cold War. America, the Soviet Union, and Britain agreed on maintaining control over nuclear production, experiment, and proliferation. This agreement is known as Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. France, of course, refused to sign this treaty. China also conducted a nuclear test in 1964 and refused to sign the treaty. This treaty imposed ban on conducting a nuclear test in open atmosphere. And of course, except Communist China, the other four were already permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, possessing the veto power. Apart from nuclear weapons and missiles, the superpowers have also developed chemical and biological weapons. These weapons of mass destruction can kill millions of people without damaging any materialistic wealth. People would die miserably while suffering from various diseases because of these lethal weapons. During these decades, many important and far-fetching changes took place in international politics. Owing to many reasons, the Cold War among superpowers also ended, and so the Nuclear Ban Treaty helped in this concern. India has always welcomed this treaty, but it is always a supporter of disarmament. The world will be always in danger until the disarmament of lethal weapons is not done. Rise of independent nations in Asia. India achieved independence in 1947 after long freedom struggle. Owing to Britain's policy of divide and rule and certain other reasons, the country was divided into two nations, namely India and Pakistan. In the same way, the continuous struggle against Britishers, countries like Sri Lanka and Myanmar got independence in 1948. In the case of Indonesia, the United Nations played an important role 1949. Asian countries like Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam too got independence. Rise of independent nations in Africa. The Second World War proved to be a good omen for the enslaved nations of Africa. After the Second World War, countries like Abyssinia, Ethiopia, South Africa and Egypt were independent. The Second World War and the freedom struggle in Asian countries inspired the other African countries too. The result was that during the tenure of 16 years from 1951 to 1966, 40 small and large countries became free. Imperialist countries tried to have supremacy over these countries, but these countries either joined the superpowers or the military resources and got their freedom. Non-aligned movement. Some new nations adopted the policy of not to align with any of the two power blocs and military blocs. They decided that they would maintain equal distance with both blocs. These nations were identified as non-aligned nations, and their foreign policy was called non-aligned policy. Those neutral nations that did not want to adopt the ideologies of either of the two superpowers of the world wished to have an all-round development maintaining its unique existence. Under the leadership of India's first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, Indonesia's first President Sukarno, Egypt's second President Gamal Abdel Nasser, Ghana's first President Kwame Nkrumah, and Yugoslavia's President Josip Broz Tito got a thumping support for the movement. In this non-alignment council, 23 countries of Asia and 6 countries of Africa were present. The organization was founded in Belgrade in 1961, known as NAM, or Non-Aligned Movement. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, the policies of non-alignment were framed. NAM completed valuable leadership. Nehru believed that movement continues to see a role for itself, as in its view, the world's poorest nations remain exploited and marginalized, no longer by opposing superpowers, but rather in a unipolar world, and it is Western hegemony and neo-colonialism that the movement has really realigned itself again. It opposes foreign occupation, interference in internal affairs, and aggressive unilateral measures, but it has also shifted to focus on the socio-economic challenges facing member states, especially the inequalities manifested by globalization and the implications of neoliberal policies. The non-aligned movement has identified economic underdevelopment, poverty, and social injustices as growing threats to peace and security. Today, more and more countries have joined the non-aligned movement. Union Summit was held at Kuala Lumpur on 13th May 2003. For the last 4 decades, many incidents have happened. With the disintegration of Soviet Union and Russia's power decreased, America emerged as a superpower. Imperial policy decreased to minimum in other countries. In these situations, non-aligned movement played a dominant role. The non-aligned nations, with their non-aligned policy, were successful in contributing towards world politics. The non-aligned movement was successful in showing off its moral impact for maintaining world peace, stopping wars, maintaining human society and nationalism, as well as the superpowers adopting an attitude of disarmament. Partition and unification of Germany. Germany was the main cause behind both the world wars. It faced a humiliating defeat in World War II. all its state administration and economy collapsed completely. There was not a single large party left in the whole of Germany that could rule the nation. In addition to that, there was fear that Germany would pose threat to the world once again if it emerges as a military power once again. Therefore, the defeated Germany was divided into 4 administrative segments. The Soviet Red Army in the latter phase of the war had captured the eastern part of Germany. Therefore, it was accepted that eastern Germany would remain in their control. Whereas it was decided that America would control southwestern side of Germany, France would control its area near France, while Britain would control areas of Germany bordering Belgium and Holland. America, France and Britain started thinking about certain alternative arrangement. Meanwhile, an atmosphere of distrust and doubt had already started between 2 power blocks. America and other Western European countries established Federal Republic of Germany. This was administered jointly by America, Britain and France. On the other side, the Soviet Union also declared East Germany as Democratic Republic of East Germany. Thus, after the war, 2 independent German states came into existence, namely West Germany Democratic and East Germany Communist. As Germany's 3 western segments were united, 3 administrative segments of Berlin also united. In a reaction to this, Soviet Union in April 1948 declared Berlin blockade. This resulted into tremendous tension between the Soviet Union and the Western countries. Later on, a high and 42-kilometer long wall separating Western and Eastern Berlin was constructed. The communist government tried to prevent thousands of East German citizens from jumping and entering into the free atmosphere of Western Germany. Many people lost their lives in doing so. After about 4 to 4.5 decades, Western Germany made an astonishing development. Experts consider this as German miracle. There was no remarkable change in the economic condition of East Germany. The East German communist government crushed all hopes of its people for political freedom and rapid economic development. Till 1990, many important and far-fetching changes took place in international politics. Owing to many reasons, the Cold War among superpowers also ended. These years witnessed cracks in otherwise impregnable Soviet Union. Ultimately, Soviet Union was disintegrated. As a consequence of it, on October 3, 1990, both the Germany united. People broke down the German Wall, which was a symbol of German division. People considered demolition of the Berlin Wall as the end of the Cold War era and celebrated the occasion wholeheartedly. Today, unified Germany has turned out to be the strongest economic power in Europe. After 1990, they have made a tremendous effort to be the strongest economic nation in the last decade. Today, it has become one of the most important and leading nations in the European Union. Disintegration of Soviet Union. During the last decade of the 20th century, Soviet Union's Prime Minister Mikhail Gorbachev's liberal policy led to the disintegration of Soviet Union, Russia. Peaceful disintegration of Soviet Union is considered as epoch-making in the international politics. Mikhail Gorbachev became the Prime Minister from a socialistic side on 11th March 1989. He had a liberal attitude. Russia had progressed tremendously in the field of science and technology. They also had acquired capability to compete with superpowers like America. Gorbachev adopted 2 policies, glasnost and perestroika. In this way, Gorbachev introduced economic and political reforms in the place of single-handed communist rule. The stronghold of Communist Party, the Soviet bureaucracy and the Red Army started weakening. In 1990, process of the disintegration of the Soviet Union began. Towards the end, out of 15 states, 14 states became independent and disintegration of Soviet Union came to an end, December 1991. India's contribution at the international level. India has contributed significantly at the international level during its freedom struggle and after its independence. India has always opposed imperialism, colonialism, and evils like racial discrimination. It has supported movements opposing such evils. India has always remained active in the formation of the United Nations and is actively involved in all its activities. India has played an important role by sending its military to support the United Nations efforts in maintaining international peace and security. India has worked appreciably by sending military troops to countries like Gaza, Cyprus, Congo, and Sri Lanka during their conflicts. India has helped actively in maintaining peace. India has persistently emphasized on the need of disarmament to achieve world peace and security. In this issue, it has taken leadership in debates world around and in making useful suggestions. India has expressed the desire of the entire humanity for peace by presenting a proposal for total nuclear disarmament in the United Nations General Assembly. To spend the money in the upliftment of poor people in other countries instead of using money in creation of nuclear weapon and military has always been a demand from India in the United Nations. World peace has permanently remained India's primary concern for its foreign policy. India has always remained active to achieve an atmosphere of cooperation, trust, and understanding among nations. India's relations with other countries. Relation between India and United States, US. Both India and the United States are democratic countries. Apart from having lot of similarities, there has been lot of ups and downs in the relationship also. The United States did not like India's role of not joining any power bloc and accepting non-aligned policy after its independence. Further, they hoped that India would join them, but India joined non-aligned movement for its economic growth. There is another reason that amicable relation between India and US could not grow. That is, US policy of favoring Pakistan. They supported Pakistan in the case of Jammu Kashmir. Pakistan had joined US-led power and military bloc, whereas India had adopted policy of non-alignment. Treaties regarding nuclear weapons have become one of the most important points of disagreement between India and United States. United States has persisted that India should sign the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. When India conducted nuclear test in Pokhran in Rajasthan in 1998, it was taken seriously and certain sanctions were imposed against India, as US aided financially and technically. There is a remarkable change in relations between both countries after terrorist attack on New York's World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. The United States is now accepting the fact that India is growing economically very fast. Now, both the countries wish that there should be intimate relationship with each other. In September 2014-15, India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi visited America and even addressed the United Nations. American President Barack Obama was the first American president to be the chief guest for India's 66th Republic Day celebration. In this way, America and India now have a cordial and amicable relation. The issues of terrorism are concerns of the heads of the country. Relation between India and the Soviet Union, Russia. The Soviet Union has helped India considerably in establishing heavy and key industries. the Soviet Union has taken India's side in the issue of Jammu Kashmir. They also have often exercised their veto power in the United Nations Security Council to see that proposal against India pertaining to Jammu Kashmir issue should not pass. In this way, Russia and India have a very close friendly relations. India's relation with its neighboring countries. India-Pakistan. Immediately after India's independence, the relation between India and Pakistan were always stressful. 3 gruesome wars took place between India and Pakistan in the year 1948, 1965 and 1971, and in all these wars, Pakistan was defeated. Both the countries have Tashkent and Shimla Treaty, but Pakistan does not follow it with utmost devotion. In 1999, Kargil War between India and Pakistan took place. Fortunately, heads of both the countries have expressed eagerness to resolve all issues peacefully through negotiations. India-China. India and China relations started in the year 1954. When China displayed its boundary regions on map, it disturbed the relations between India and China. India opposed greatly when China showed most of the regions belonging to India as belonging to them. The McMahon border showing the border region between India and China was rejected by China, and it led to further discomfort in the relations. China attacked India in 1962 and captured the regions which were displayed in their map. India sent military troops to its border regions to safeguard from China. China made a full stop to the war, and in this way, war ended. To resolve these problems, many meetings were held, but it turned out to be futile. But in the last decades, China and India has a cooperative and friendly relations. India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi invited Shri Jinping, the Prime Minister of China, to the riverfront Ahmedabad for a courtesy visit. India-Bangladesh. Bangladesh got freedom after many struggles. In the year 1971, Bangladesh became an independent and sovereign country, as earlier it was a part of Pakistan. As a new upcoming country, India helped Bangladesh financially, technically and physically by giving equipment for its growth and development. But there are certain issues which have risen between India and Bangladesh. The utilization of water from river Ganga and its proper channelizing has been talked out between the two countries. During flood, cyclone and other natural calamities, India has helped immensely. In 2015, concrete talks have taken place in matters of disputed geographical land regions and the citizenship of people. India-Bhutan. A peaceful and cordial friendship treaty had been signed between India and Bhutan in the year 1949. Bhutan has trustfully sided India in its security and foreign policies. India assured to aid Bhutan in telecommunication and transportation. Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru visited Bhutan in the year 1958, and thereafter India President too had visited Bhutan in the year 1970. India helped Bhutan in becoming a member of United Nations in the year 1971. There is never a troubled relation between India and Bhutan. India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi visited Bhutan in the year 2014 and said that India's progress has direct effect on its neighboring countries. The inter-security related cooperation has been done satisfactorily. India-Sri Lanka. The relation between India and Sri Lanka is very old. Many Tamilians of India have gone to Sri Lanka and settled thereafter. Their citizenship was the main issue between India and Sri Lanka, but continuous talks has resolved it. The problems of Tamilians and peaceful talks between Tamil organizations and Sri Lankan government was the priority of India. India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi visited the troubled regions of Tamilians in Jaffna on 13th March 2015. India assisted financially for the reconstruction of 27,000 houses for rehabilitation of Tamilians. Today, India and Sri Lanka have very cordial relations. India-Nepal. The relation between India and Nepal started with the signing of treaty in the year 1950. According to the treaty, both countries are considered to be sovereign and to preserve regional unity as well as commutation of citizens in both the countries. India has helped Nepal socially and economically. Nepali students visit India for higher studies. The rivers flowing from Himalaya come from the various regions of Nepal. Due to this, during rain, it affects India badly. To stop the floods due to these rivers, talks have begun between these two countries. On 25th April 2015, Nepal faced a destructive earthquake of the magnitude of 7.8 on the Richter scale, which caused the death of 8,000 people. India aided in relief and rehabilitation work in the areas affected by earthquake. India-Afghanistan. India has very friendly relations with Afghanistan. India has large-heartedly contributed in the reconstruction of Afghanistan, like in construction, health and education. In the economic and social development, India has financially helped. During natural calamities also, India financially helped. The construction of Afghanistan's parliament building is being done by India. India and Myanmar. India and Myanmar Burma has very cordial relations. After India got independence, Myanmar got independence in 1948. From that time, relationship has been friendly. After independence, Myanmar has demanded financial aid from India. India has helped them instantly because India wants Myanmar to be financially sound. India's foreign policy is to have world peace and security. Furthermore, Indian foreign policy ensures friendly and cordial relationship with its neighboring countries. But there always has been a rise and fall in these relations owing to various reasons.